Hello, hello. We're back again for another Wet Ink Wednesday, and I am joined by Jaan Westphal from Germany, who is the artist for Herd. And we're going to talk about Herd, dinosaurs, and I don't know what else. Jan, welcome to the call.
Yeah. Hi everybody. Hi, Matt. It's very cool to be with you tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate you staying up. Well, I don't know if you stay up late or not, but it's definitely later on your your quarter around the globe from me. So it's later there than it is here. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that. So I always want to start with like I don't even know where to start because it's usually a game. We're making a game, so like I kind
Mhm.
of want to ask you about games and like I know in my brain like I mean games are big in Germany, right? I know that,
Oh
right?
yeah.
But then you're also the artist for the game, so like would you want to you do art, so like do you want to talk about a little I want to know about both, right? So which one do you want to talk about first? The games
Yeah.
or the art? Because I
Let's
assume
first talk about games because
yeah.
games are a huge part of my life, actually.
Nice.
I play games, I would say on a daily basis.
All
Because
right.
first of all, I'm an artist, but also I'm a kindergarten teacher. So playing games is like a huge part of my daily life.
So you have like a
Um,
Haba shelf over there in the classroom, I
we
imagine.
have a shelf with games, yeah, and also I'm working with very small children from age 1 to 3, and their games are very different from like board games.
Sure.
They are very spontaneous and they change. The rules for their games change very quickly. So this is one part of my life, this very fluid, very natural type of gaming with children. But then I'm also a huge nerd for games. I play board games with my family. I play video games like very often. I play solo RPGs. Even I have a group of friends we meet to play, um, yeah, classical, pen and paper, Dungeons and Dragons style of games, and
Nice.
also board games. I'm huge for Twilight Imperium, for example,
All right.
and
All
yeah,
right. The big ones, the big
big
games.
ones.
Uh, what is the so other than Twilight Imperium, I mean, do you like a little bit of everything, or are you really gravitate to those very large? We call them coffin boxes here in the
Yeah.
United States. Very large box games. I mean, is that your fate? I mean, no other game compares to Twilight Imperium. I have played zero point 0.5 games of Twilight Imperium in my
Okay, I
life,
see.
but I know what it is. It
Yeah,
takes up the whole table and it's a whole day and
it's a whole day. Yeah, right.
mhm. Uh, but like, things like Cosmic Encounters and I'm thinking about, the old classics like Carcassonne or whatever. I mean, those
Mhm.
are much lighter, much smaller, faster
Yeah.
things. Do you play those as well?
I play those as well. Yeah, we play those. Yeah, not on a daily basis, but like once or twice a week. I would say we play those games at home. And to play Twilight Imperium, I always say it's like all stars have to align to have
Mm,
like five grown-up people have the time and commitment to go a full day of just gaming,
yeah.
to have that happen, it really needs some commitment and yeah, to be the stars aligned. So yeah, we play those maybe every 3 months, maybe.
I mean, that's still
And
that's still a
yeah,
pretty good hit ratio, to get
it is
it's
absolutely.
it's like a lifestyle to like, okay, when is the next time we could get together for a day and do this? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
that's real impressive. Um, do you
So yeah, when Sam came to me about the Herd game that we're making,
yeah.
um, it felt like two worlds that
Hmm.
they're combined. I have the dinosaurs on the one hand side, we can talk about that later, and the games on the other side. And now both come together, and that's really great.
Right. So, well, let me ask about that connection point then before well, I guess we should ask about the art then. Like if you, so like was it if you're doing you must have already been doing dinosaur art, I assume, already by the time that Sam was reaching out for look for an artist for the game, before we were even involved as publishers. Um,
Yeah.
so what is that art? What is art then for you as like a as a thing? Is it like I mean, is it a hobby or like a deep hobby, like a part of
Mhm.
career, or like I don't tell me all about like you as
Yeah.
like an artist. Like where did that start for you from that side?
It is actually a hobby turned career. I started like drawing dinosaurs when I was 3 or 4 years old, and I drew them just for fun. And then over the age, dinosaurs became, childish thing. People assume
Hmm.
that grown-ups don't talk about dinosaurs and their favorite dinosaurs and why dinosaurs are pretty cool all day, And so I lost my connection to dinosaurs, yeah, about when I was 10 or 11 years old. But I kept drawing like every time. I was the one child in school that doesn't pay attention, but that didn't pay attention, but just drew whatever they had in their mind. So later, when I was mid 20-ish, I rediscovered my love for dinosaurs
Hmm.
because of one book, and I brought the book today.
Oh wow.
It's called All Yesterdays.
Ah, all right.
You heard about it?
Oh, I know all about All Yesterdays.
Ah,
I
great.
I don't have that one, but I have the Cryptozoologicon, which
Ah,
is by the
nice.
same creative team.
Yeah,
Um,
great.
so
Yeah,
yeah.
and I saw how creative and how modern their take on dinosaurs was.
Hmm.
And yeah, that sparked my love for dinosaurs again. And I started drawing them. I started reading scientific papers. I started getting into the whole paleontology scene on what has been Twitter. And yeah, so I got back to that and I drew so much. I just put everything I had in my mind onto paper and later in digital style and just put it on there. And over the time, more and more people liked my art, and more people reached out and criticized my art and said, this is not correct because we have
Mm,
this information. So
yeah.
that came back to me because I had now a scientific understanding of reading papers and understanding how we can figure out some things and how they must connect to other scientific findings we have. So
Yeah. Uh,
the whole field of paleo art to discover what is most probable and to make educated guesses rather than just drawing cool dinosaurs uh, became a hobby. And then when Sam reached out and others reached out to me, I started making the first money and yeah, became a freelance artist even.
well, I mean, that's great. That's like a real, yeah. Once you get paid for it, then you're really an artist, or really
Yeah,
whatever you're trying to do, like a performer or an artist or a writer or making
yeah,
spreadsheets. I don't know, whatever, like doing
yeah,
taxes, whatever it
absolutely.
is. Once you get paid for it, it's really real thing. Um, our job, and as terms of a job, not that you can't do it and not get paid for it, and you're still doing it, but like,
Yeah. It
um,
feels much more real, yeah.
yeah. Well, that's great because I definitely feel like you showed me that all yesterdays. That's Darren Naish, John Conway, and Memo Kozman. They're the
Yeah.
three like people that worked on all yesterdays. And yeah, I've read Darren Naish's blog and listened to Darren Naish and John Conway on their podcast for years.
Oh,
And so
great.
I follow Memo Kozman on the internet, and I see him wandering around the streets of posting pictures of random alleys in Istanbul. So like these are people that I know as well, and like that book and that whole, it's almost called they talk. I mean, it's been like covered on like news sites as like the all yesterday's movement
Yeah.
as like a new way of unlocking sort of the thing because the for those of you who are watching this who don't know what all yesterdays is, the idea that they took from the book is sort of like they were exploring this idea of um the yes, there are the bones, right? And so like we know certain shapes of dinosaurs and extinct creatures from their bones, but everything else is we're sort of forced to speculate. And so the all yesterday's concept tried to push the possibilities of representation, right? And so like maybe they have big bags like you like bullfrogs and birds, they'll have these big sacks on their necks. So what if a dinosaur has one of those? There's it's soft tissue and you can't prove it, but like it's not impossible, right? So that book in particular was really pushing the possibilities as a way to both honor the research that isn't done and also sort of poke fun at sort of tropes within paleo art and stuff like that. There's a whole the shrink wrapped dinosaur thing where like all that we know is the bones, and so we never draw them with muscles. We only draw them with like skin and bones because the
Yeah.
bones is all we know. And they're like, don't do that. Make them big and fat and covered in feathers and whatever. I mean, it's an exploration of all of those themes, and then yeah, it's like a whole group of people that are now talking about. And I'm so thrilled that you bust out with this book because like this is a I'm not an artist myself, but like I said, I've read the blog of these people and been part of on the edge of their discussion, of what they're trying to do with pictures of dinosaurs, right? Taking them both sort of more fun and more speculative, but also more reality based, like you were talking about. Like
Yeah.
this is incorrect. We know that the limbs didn't connect that way. Do it right. Do it better.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And also the creativity to make guesses is one aspect, but also to have educated guesses. This is
mm,
what fascinated me because you could just go and slap just fat everywhere on the dinosaur skeleton,
phew,
and it would look crazy. But if you have like some data about reptiles at all and birds as very specific reptiles, you can make very educated guesses, about what you talk about. Those big sacks of air, for example, to have those on modern birds, modern dinosaurs, and also some other reptiles, there is a very high possibility that of all the dinosaurs that has been, some of them had those features.
right. Yeah, I mean that's it. That's the whole thesis,
Absolutely.
and the educated guess part is real big in there and going to the papers and all that kind of stuff. Like, so I wanted to ask you about like the scientific illustration. Have you been commissioned to do, have you gotten to have your work be like the recreation on the cover page of a scientific paper because the scientist or whatever is like, hey, I need an illustration of this new species, or have you gotten to do any of that like technical paleo art in that way?
Mhm. Twice actually.
Nice.
I have one illustration that I have done for the annual meeting of the paleontologic. What is the adjective?
I think it's
Paleon
paleontological. And it,
Paleontological Society of Germany. Yeah, right. And there was an annual meeting, and they showed scientific posters to illustrate some findings. And I had the honor to make one scientific illustration for one of those last year. And actually, for the coming year, the Paleontological Society is what is it? Presenting the fossil of the year, and doing right now doing the illustrations for the postcard and the flyers.
nice.
Yeah.
It is that a is it's a secret? I assume you can't tell until later what the fossil of the year will be, or is it
I think there will be a whole huge revelation.
okay?
Yeah.
All right.
So
We won't ask you
you'll
to
see. It's
disclose the
not a
secret.
dinosaur. So,
Well, sure, there are plenty of fossils. Like I'm picturing ammonite shells and stuff like that. There's all
yeah,
kinds of fossils. Um,
close.
uh, and there's so many of them. There's so many ammonites in the world. Uh, well, I mean that's really great. So and then I also I don't know if you I want to yeah, I know you've got a book also that you've done. It was that part of
Mhm.
all of this same sort of like professionalizing your hobby into like a paleo illustrator, I assume, as well. Is that uh, tell me about the book, right? I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the another cross point between all the different aspects of my life. As I
Mm,
told you, I'm a kindergarten teacher, And so I'm very interested in children's books. I read them on a daily basis. I read them to my daughter. I read them in the kindergarten. So to have a book about dinosaurs in a modern, you know, illustration of them, in a modern style illustration of them, and to feature dinosaurs that are not super common, not a T-Rex, not a Stegosaurus, not a Triceratops. To have all those things together, I made a children's book. It's this one actually. Sina, the dinosaur girl. Um, I did this. It's not published yet. I didn't
Oh,
find a publisher up until today. So if anyone is looking to publish a children's book about dinosaurs, I feel free to contact me. I'm happy to feature it everywhere. Yeah, it's a book about a little girl. She's a Sinosauropteryx, and she gets lost in the woods of Cretaceous China, and she has some adventures to come back home. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
yeah, that's great. And I like this sort of describing it as like worlds colliding, right? So like you're an
Mm,
educator and an artist, so then you have a children's book, and then you're an educator or you're a gamer and an artist, so then you've illustrated games, and you're just an interested human, and you read the scientific papers, so you've illustrated scientific posters. I mean,
mm,
it is sort of like the interest in the past and creatures of the past is sort of like the big center, and everything else connects around it a little bit
yeah.
almost. I'm sure there's other things that
Yeah,
you
that's a cool way to put it. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I guess depends, I just meant that like you're at the center of the circle, not the dinosaurs, right? Your life is
Yeah.
your life, but um yeah. So I want to ask, okay, so you're already doing the
Mm,
scientific illustration. So like you talked about Sam reaching out to you to do some of the art. Sam Knowlton, designer of Herd, and how did that actually how did that actual connection point happen? Did
yeah.
you have like a post where you're like, hey, I'm a paleo artist, I'm available for work, or
Mm,
was Sam like, oh no, I need somebody who I like your style? Like, I mean,
yeah.
what both and what happened? How did it
Yeah.
happen?
I did one illustration of Utah Raptor. It looked very gritty and a bit gory,
Hmm.
and it had the style of the Herd, yeah, game art that I made. It was a light background and a very dark silhouette of the dinosaur with like blood running from its mouth. And I posted it, and sometimes you post a picture and barely anyone sees it, but that one blew up. So yeah, occasionally Sam saw it, and yeah, that was exactly the kind of style she was looking for this game. So she reached out, and yeah, we talked a bit about it, and I was immediately thrilled to do this. So yeah, as we started looking for a direction, she asked me to do some dinosaurs, and I did them. And Sam is a really great client because she asks for something, I paint it, and she's always, yeah, excited. She loves it, and I have barely to do any, corrections. So this is very cool to work with her.
Yeah. And by the time myself and Brandon came on the project, like when we were first playtesting this game, at this point, 2 years ago is when we were first playtesting and trying out Herd in an earlier iteration. All the art, all the cards already had all the art. So like
Mm,
this has been a long time process. I gather.
absolutely.
Obviously you did all the art long enough ago that the art was already there. Um, I I do want to ask about the style a little bit because you mentioned
Mhm.
it being gritty and there's sort of when I interviewed Sam about the design, I sort of joked about it looking like, this is Frank Miller's
Mm,
Dinosaur Topia sort of thing. There's a very, punch 'em up comic book kind of uh, sensibility to it a little bit. And I
yeah.
don't know if that is, I mean, that came from, certain. certain things, obviously that Sam is trying to accomplish about like showing a game about combat and stuff like that. But if you did the illustration originally in that same style, like what were your inspirations like to do it in that particular way with, like you said, the light, almost sepia toned color palette and the sort of brutal presentation. Nature is red in tooth and claw is the famous phrase from. Uh, it's not Darwin. What's his name? The Will not Owens. I don't know. One of those Darwin's bulldog. Whoever all is Huxley. Somebody Thomas Huxley. Somebody said that
Maybe I
uh,
don't know.
back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of the style just developed more or less naturally. I
Mm,
had the first Utah Raptor illustration that was not for the game, that was just my private art.
yeah.
And she asked about what was the first dinosaur I did? I think it was Allosaurus, or was it Iguanodon? I'm not even sure which was the first one I did for the game, but she asked for this dinosaur in the style of this Utah Raptor. So I went with this a bit gory over the top style that I had chosen for this illustration. And from that point on, I had to go this route. I had started with the blood running from the mouth, so the next dinosaur had to go a similar way. And then I did an herbivore. So, what about the herbivore? Will it just look peaceful, or will it have some of those, violent undertones going on? And I decided to go that way to have it, a bit cool.
Hmm.
And yeah, and from that point on, the next illustration and the next illustration, they build up in in this style,
Sure.
even to a point where I had to dismiss illustrations because I just went full gore and thought, no, that's not the way I think the game is going.
Yeah.
So I changed them later.
So what are your like to talk about your art a little more, like what are kind of your inspirations as either artists or like artistic movements or anything like that? Like when you're because I mentioned comic books, but then it's maybe that isn't that's what I see when I look at it, but maybe that's not right. Like what are your inspirations as like an artist bringing in not necessarily this project, but I mean all your project is of I think all your art is all of a piece. I mean, the herd art is pushed in a very particular direction, but
Absolutely.
it's not hugely different from the other stuff you do. So what do you consider
Yeah.
sort of your artistic inspirations?
Oh my God, there's so many. Mark Whitten is a huge inspiration. Like every piece he does is a hit. And I don't know if you know her, but Natalia Jagielska, she's also a paleontologist, very active on X, and she focuses on pterosaurs.
Hmm.
And she's located in Scotland, I think, but she's originally from Poland, and we have had lots of contact about pterosaur illustrations because she is very, vocal about the whole thing. And I reached out to her several times about anatomy questions because pterosaurs, because we have no living relative of pterosaurs today, their whole anatomy is very freaky, and it's hard to grasp when you're not very, literate about their anatomy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I reached out to her. Her art is stunning also, and very, very inspiring. Darren Naish, sure, you mentioned him before. He's very vocal about everything paleontology on X2. And oh my God, yeah, like all of those different artists, and their styles are so diverse that I can always find some aspect that I take from the picture and translate it into my own style. One of the first things I learned when I started to take art more seriously, to perfect a picture and not just draw whatever comes to my mind and work on a picture for several hours and not just scribble things,
Hmm.
was to look at one artist and look at their style about how they use colors or how they use shapes or what kinds of brushes they use, for example, and then look at another artist about the topics like landscapes
Mm.
or dinosaurs or the situations those dinosaurs are in, and to combine those things so that you don't just look at one artist and copy their style, but to have like different, very actively choose to take one thing from one artist and another thing from another artist and run it through the machine that is our brain and the skill that is my hands, and
Right.
to bring it into a new thing, to make it into a new piece of art. And I think that is a technique that makes my art very diverse. I have very diverse pictures, and sometimes I don't even think I found a style yet, um, except for when I work in one specific style as for the game, because that
Yeah.
is something, I created and I focus to make this look coherent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have another question about the style, but I think it comes into the talking about the I think well the environments
Mhm.
expansion that the it's
Oh
also
yeah.
part of the project. You know, crowdfunding. You know, hopefully we get there and all that kind of stuff. But I think you really, adding the snow and eh, eh, trying to capture the landscape in that same style. I think you had to looking at the art, right? I think you had to level up your ability to represent those things to bring
Absolutely.
in rain and more plant life and stuff like that into those particular pictures. And I mean, I think you did a great job of like bridging that request with
Mm.
this looking consistent with the style that was established for the original set of the game. Um, so I I think this is there was something that I wanted to say and I just thought I don't know slip it in here, but like is that obviously there's work and thought that goes into like making that work, right? To put
Yeah.
the T-Rex butt snow and like not just like snow on the ground, but like there's snow falling in that image.
Yeah.
So
That was very hard actually, because the art and the color palette I use about four, five, six different colors. And with just the dinosaurs, that's pretty easy. You have a background, you have a foreground, and you have the pattern on the dinosaur, and you have the grid texture going on in the background. That's pretty much it. But for the landscapes, that didn't work because I had to use a field of view, like a depth. I think it's depth.
mhm.
To create that feeling, I had to use more colors. And that was very hard, especially the snow ones, because the colors are swapped. The light is now the foreground, and the back has to be then the background. So that became pretty hard, but it was a challenge, and I'm very happy with how they turned out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're pretty great to pushing that like I said within the style of that you established then
Yeah.
you've gone just outside of the original style or it's within it looks like a full it looks like part of the same universe I guess
Cool.
is to which is the goal. I mean, you're good at your job.
Absolutely.
Um,
Great. Yeah.
Um, I do want to, we haven't really talked too much about the game itself, and the project. So, there's, uh, obviously people who are watching this have probably already watched my interview with Sam and have heard about the gameplay and stuff like that. So I don't necessarily want to, um, go into those details, but like the basic premise of the game is that there's you're a herd of dinosaurs. Each player will play a herd of dinosaurs, and you as the artist did big illustrations of herds of the herbivores. The classic ones, the Apatosaurus slash Brontosaurus. I'm not sure
Mm.
what it got named, but the sauropod
Yeah,
dinosaur,
the
the
sauropods. Yeah.
the Ceratopsian with the horns, and then the Stegosaurs. forget what their broader name is, but the stegosaurs and
Yeah.
Kylosaur, and so those are some of the ones that you did, and then you did a lot of predators. So there's the predator for those again, the very simply explaining the game. The every round there will be predator cards drawn from the deck, and you have to have a herd strength stronger than the predator, or you lose a herd member. And there's different ways that that happens, but that's the game. So there's all of these predators, again, some of the classics. You've got the T-Rex illustration and the Allosaur and I I you've done so many. I'm trying to remember which ones are
Yeah.
actually in the
The
game.
the the Dilophosaurus is also one of my favorites about the color and the pattern we went with.
Mm.
And yeah, the Dryptosaurus is like my absolute favorite card I did, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you like what is your favorite one that you worked on after talking about all those, but that's the thing. And
Oh no,
yeah,
it's out. Yeah.
the I do like your Dilophosaurs, of course, because they're so famous from Jurassic Park, even though Jurassic Park did them completely differently than how they would quote unquote really be.
Mm,
So then you actually look at the specimens and you're like, wow, this thing's huge. And
yeah.
whatever. And so obviously yours are, as you've said, it's scientifically accurate. So you're not doing the movie monster version. Um, uh,
More or less accurate. I went with the with the skeletal art with the skeleton. I went with the size that's correct, and I gave them a plumage, a feathering all over their body.
yeah,
So that is speculative, but it's within reason to show them with fur, with like a feathery fur, and
right.
which then could have shown a pattern. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's they're Maniraptorans, right? So they're in that branch.
Absolutely.
It makes
You
sense.
know your dinosaurs.
I tell you, I've been listening to this guy's podcast for years. I know all about
Amazing.
Maniraptorans and that's their
Yeah.
hand birds, whatever. It's the hand thief, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, right, I can tell I know all about all kinds of archosaurs. You're talking about the
Okay.
pterosaurs earlier, and like I always say that I haven't asked you yet what your favorite dinosaur is, so I will do that in
Mhm.
just a second. But I made this joke in the previous video, but like I really like Quetzalcoatlus, the giant
Oh yeah.
pterosaur, uh, but it's not a dinosaur because it's a pterosaur. It's just outside of Dinosauria, so like it's not my favorite dinosaur, right? Um, uh, but that's yeah. So I know something more than nothing about dinosaurs, right?
Mhm.
So the last group is talking about is the prey cards. Very quickly, that's one of the things you can do. You can kind of like if you have a hand, you'll have a hand of cards as a player. You kind of throw some of these prey dinosaurs, and then they get gobbled up, but your herd is safe. So there's a bunch of those as well. Um, and some of the ones that show up there are a little bit they're bigger and stronger, but they're not one of the
The prey.
herds, but then there's still prey. But then there's the smaller ones, and there's just lots of those little small ones in the deck and stuff like that. So there's all those different ones. So maybe not for illustrating of the card deck, but what is totally your favorite dinosaur of all of them? Like that you.
I have to say I love that somewhere in my life I made a choice that led me to being interviewed about my favorite dinosaur. Like that seems to be like a great way I'm going. So yeah, my favorite dinosaur is Sinosauropteryx. It's on my logo. It's this
Hmm.
one. It's a
That's what.
small theropod from China, from Cretaceous China, and it's my favorite dinosaur because of many different reasons. Like the first reason is Sinosauropteryx is the first dinosaur that I heard of. We could know its color because when I
Mm,
grew up as a child, knowing the color of dinosaurs was impossible. Like we know their skeletons, we know how they look vaguely, but their color will be a mystery lost to time. Like that was common sense. And when I rediscovered dinosaurs and read that we know actually the color of one of those, and that was Sinosauropteryx, and we figured out that they are in a like gingery red with dark marks on their tail, uh, like dark stripes on their tail. I was amazed because this looks like the red panda, which lives in
Mhm.
a bit like the red panda, which lives in China today, and it's just super cute. That was the first aspect. Then I studied sinology, so China studies, and I lived in China for 8 months in one row, and then several times I've been there again. And I have many friends in China, and I speak Mandarin. So I just love the country, I love the culture and the nature and the animals. So to have like this Chinese dinosaur be the one that has this color we now know of, that has been like a cool coincidence, and that came together very well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I loved it. So, um, and yeah, like those two aspects, they came together. I felt attracted to the China part and to the part, and it's also super cute. So I decided whenever somebody asks about my favorite dinosaur, this will be it.
Yeah. And I think it's the same. Uh, I, I love that as an answer because it is sort of like about the animal itself, but I mean, dinosaurs, even though they are so much that we can know about them, but bones and like we talked earlier, we didn't say phylogenetic bracketing earlier, but that is what we were talking about when we were saying, the different reptiles have the different qualities and birds, and so dinosaurs fit right in there, so they must have similar
Mm,
qualities. There's so much we can know, but then you connect with them often for these personal reasons, right? Like that,
absolutely.
and there's so much a canvas to project upon, right? The dinosaur that I say is my favorite dinosaur is
Mm.
the Therizinosaur, and it's
Oh
a
yeah.
similar sort of thing. Like I had never heard of it before, and then I went to a museum, and then they had one, and I got to see this enormous thing with these very long finger claws and
Mm,
like a giant, was it a giant ground sloth analog type thing where
mm,
pulling down the brush with its big hands and probably, but then you wouldn't want to make one angry either. And they had it was the whole exhibit, right? The slab of rock that the I don't know if it was a real slab of rock or a recreation of,
mm,
of the bone bed, right, where this specimen had come from, but it was there, and there was a thing where you had sort of you had a sheet that they'd hung up in the museum that had a
mm.
painting on it, and then the skeleton was on the other side of the sheet. So like when you were on the
Okay.
outside of the exhibit, you only saw this illustration, but then you
Oh
went
wow.
in around behind and you could see the bones there, the skeleton, mounted, but then you could look through the skeleton and see the outline of the image.
Oh,
Everything about
cool.
it was such a neat experience in a museum, and
Yeah.
and so like it almost, I mean, yes, the creature is cool looking, and it's I can say like no, it's one of the ones that isn't the like top 10 named species, right? So I
Yeah.
get cool points for obscure dinosaur, right?
Yeah.
Um, but also it's more about like that whole experience of like
Yeah.
discovering it, and
You've
I
seen
remember.
one. That
Oh,
makes, yeah.
right. I've seen, the bones, or again, I don't know if it was the real bones, probably not the real bones. Probably, a mount,
Yeah, okay.
of whatever, cast bones, right? But
Yeah,
but that doesn't matter, right? It was the whole experience of seeing it and stuff like that. So like
absolutely.
I feel like that is that question, right? What is your favorite dinosaur means so much, right? Because it is
Yeah,
these often things. It's either a first experience or a personal experience or whatever. It's neat that
yeah.
way. So
Yeah, I'm stoked to have Therizinosaurus in our game sooner or later.
right. I think yes, it's one of the prey cards I think we play tested, but I don't think it's in the core set for release. But
Mm.
there's always more possibilities, always more ads to add. That's
Absolutely.
one of the joys of crowdfunding is that you can raise even more money. Do you need a Therizinosaur? Make sure that you
Yeah,
tell your friends about this game because maybe you'll get added in the future thing. Um,
yeah.
uh,
I don't know if we can talk about this, but maybe there are some, goals, and if
hmm.
you reach those, you can, add your favorite dinosaur. Tell us your favorite dinosaur, and we can put it in the game for, some level of participating or something like that. I don't
I
know if
think we will
that's
definitely be like this will be
possible.
the number one question on the crowdfunding page is like,
Uh,
please in the comments tell us your favorite dinosaur. And we will definitely be looking at those. Yeah, I think the choice it could inspire the choice, right, of which ones to include in the future. We always say as publishers, sales drive the line. So if this
yeah,
game is very popular and there is a demand for, oh, but you didn't include this dinosaur, you didn't include this dinosaur, and we're hearing that from people, then that will be motivated to make more additions, more
yeah,
expansion. There's always, and I know you and Sam have talked about. Sam at least has talked to me about like all the different like ideas, right? The different
mhm,
expansions that are possible, and so I think there's definitely room for that in the future. Again,
yeah,
if the project is received well by the public. I
yeah.
saw a comment like just I think it was just this morning on some social media platform, one of the ones that I'm on, and
Mhm.
somebody was like, "Oh, there's never been a good dinosaur card game or something like that," and I'm like, I don't know if that's true,
I don't know either,
but
but
thank you for your confidence in this particular project. I
yeah,
appreciate your excitement.
yeah,
I'm sure there are other plenty of dinosaur games out there, but um, maybe not one quite like this one. So there's that.
yeah, yeah. I think so too. I played a lot of games, but I don't have any dinosaur game in mind that I have played yet, except for like very, children's games about which is stronger, T-Rex or Stegosaurus. I have a height of 9 feet, and now I have a strength of 25, I don't know, tons of something.
I mean, that sounds pretty cool. Is that a for real game?
Those kind of games. I know them in Germany. Like you have them with race cars, which is faster, which is more cubic. I don't know, no cars,
Yeah,
meters
yeah.
of
Cubic
stuff.
centimeters of their engines or whatever.
Cubic centimeters. Yeah, right. Cubic meters, which would be large cars. Yeah.
It would be large cars. It'd be large cars. That's like that movie, Mortal Engines. They have cubic meters of engine in
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah.
Um, Great. Yeah, next, the Mortal Engines game. I'm sure that license is cheap. Um, uh, all right. So I do want to ask you before we start as we move to the end here, is there anything else you want to say about Herd or this particular project? And then I want to ask you about other things you might be working on. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, do you have any thoughts about like or anything else you want to say about Herd that you haven't gotten to say yet about, the production of it or the art that
Mhm.
you're doing or anything else about the game?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the patterning of the pattern of the various dinosaurs
Yeah, yeah.
because that is an aspect of paleo art that is very intriguing to me. Um, when I choose a pattern for a dinosaur, I always look for the circumstances of where it lives
Hmm.
because when you look at animals that are very closely related, they might look very different just because they live in different environments. Like say an elephant and the what is it called? The sea cow manatee. You know,
Hmm.
those are very closely related to another, but they look very different. So just their close relation doesn't say much about their appearance. Um, and other animals like leopard geckos and leopards, they look very similar in their patterns because they have a similar lifestyle of living in environments with leaves and shadows, and they hunt. So when I illustrate dinosaurs, I always look for where they live and what kind of lifestyle they have and compare that to modern animals. So, for example, one of the Dilophosaurus illustrations has those leopard style ring pattern on them because I assume in a foresty environment as an ambush predator, that would be a very beneficial kind of yeah, pattern and style, you know?
Right, right. It's like the light. the physics of the light and the air is presumably very similar for hundreds of millions of years backwards. It
Absolutely.
not likely to have changed much. So, as soon as there's plants with leaves, you're going to get that dappled effect on the ground, and so like it
Yeah.
is an advantageous to look that way for camouflage purposes. Just yeah. I mean, if it's a fair assumption, right? To
It's a fair
make
assumption.
and
Absolutely.
yeah, it's that's great. Yeah, any others? I was thinking about I don't know, obviously T-Rex is one of those things that like it's sort of overrepresented, but yeah, people talk about it a lot, but you
Mm,
kind of have to have it because it's like if there's one dinosaur that somebody knows, it's that one. And your T-Rex is I don't know. Do you want to say anything about like representing it's
mm.
sort of taking another shot as an artist at an iconic dinosaur? Like, I mean, it's sort of like there's sort of oh well everybody's done that I don't have to do it but then if you put it
Mm.
in the game then you have to do it and then you have to come up with sort of some new way to do it on
Yeah.
some level like because I think your T-Rex has patterns as well right just a little
It
bit
has
of
it has patterns as well, and I chose a very chunky, big
yes yes
style. It's not very thin. It doesn't look agile, I think. I chose a way of putting muscles and fat around its head and its neck, and like big legs. I just wanted to illustrate and to accentuate its strongness, and it's
Mm,
it's the heaviest and biggest predator we have in the game, and I want to show that it's an apex predator. It can only attack alone, all those features, and I
yeah yeah
wanted to show that this is something to deal with here.
yeah the in that I believe the ability Apex it's one of the abilities it has if you're drawing three dinosaurs and the T-Rex comes out you discard the rest only the T-Rex will be there
Yeah,
to face off it's still very
it hunts
strong
alone.
it's
Yeah,
very strong but it is but you it chases everybody else leaves all the other predators leave that is thematic but yeah it's yeah, you made him very chunky you did indeed
yeah,
make him very chunky
yeah,
so it's great. Yeah, and what you said about patterns is great. I mean, that's what you were talking about earlier, all the way back to the beginning of the interview about the research and the thinking about animals and the being up on the technical papers and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's well, even the all yesterdays, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. What is reasonable? What is reasonable within? What is a reasonable
yeah,
guess? What is a
yeah,
reasonable guess is the thing. Yeah,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's so cool to be able to show this in even in a game.
hmm,
Um, in this game, you could assume that all dinosaurs have to look very Jurassic Parky to appeal to a large audience. But with you and with Sam on the one side, you allow me to go this way, to go this paleo-arty, speculative, but not too speculative, and
hmm,
also reasonable route, and that's great because so many worlds collide and allow for this very unique style of game. Those kind of dinosaurs, you don't see them in other games. You see when you see a dinosaur in usual media, they are very toned down. They are very monstery, very Jurassic Park-esque,
right,
and
right. It's
yeah,
a big cultural impact, or
absolutely.
that
For
movie
me as
that
well, who didn't love Jurassic Park when
oh
they were
sure,
like
I mean it's
12
great.
or 13? I still love it.
Did
Yeah.
I did not go see the new movies. Did you see any of the Jurassic World movies? I'm not much of a movie goer, so
I,
I didn't
I
go see
saw them,
those.
but I was not a huge fan.
Okay, okay. They do have big. I guess I respect them a little bit that they stop pretending that they're just like oh just we're gonna make up new dinosaurs that are scarier, like okay, I guess. Um,
Okay, yeah.
uh, anyway, okay. So I do
Yeah.
so the last thing that I want to ask you about is like if you what other projects do you have on the horizon? Like what other things are you working on? You mentioned your poster for the current scientific uh, coming forth. But any other things that you've got that just as an artist or that you've been working on?
Yeah.
What else?
Uh, two projects. First of all is the children's book, the Sinosauropteryx Girl. That is one project. I'm still looking for a publisher to get like my own children's book in a bookshop that would be absolutely a check on my bucket list.
Sure.
And the second thing is actually an international project. I work with several artists about. So here's the whole thing. When the asteroid hit Earth
Mm,
6.6 million years ago, that was an incredible event. We as humans cannot even grasp what that was like because it's never happened to us, luckily, and it's also on such a big cosmic scale that the whole impact is just not great to imagine. But artists have done that because when we read about it and when we learn about it, artists just start to they want to show what they think it looked like, what the effects were like, what Earth was like on that day and
hmm
the days after and the weeks after. So there is a ton of great paleo art surrounding the whole topic, like the last minute before when the dinosaurs look up and there's something going on in the sky, or the impact itself when the atmosphere was ripped apart and there was no atmosphere left. So on the broad daylight you could still see the stars behind the asteroid because all the air just evaporated into plasma um, in the seconds the asteroid hit Earth. So then the weeks after, the days after, the years after, and so on. So all those paleo art is in the internet, but it's more or less lost because no one collected it together into
mm,
one collection. So about 3 to 4 years ago, I reached out to all those artists, everyone who made a great image that somehow touched me and then that somehow related to that topic. And I bought a license to use it in a book. Sooner or later, I want to compile all those pieces into one coffee table picture book. Not just from famous artists, but also from some guy, some girl that made an illustration somewhere on Twitter or X or Instagram or in their private blog or something, you know?
yeah.
And to have all those pictures to make a chronology of the impact as shown by artists around the globe. So up to this point, I bought a lot of illustrations. I don't even know how many, from more than 70 artists
Wow.
from more than 30 countries all around the globe, from Guam to South Korea to America to Scotland and all across Europe. And yeah, I'm looking for a publisher to publish this work. And I'm looking for paleo artists and paleontologists to fill the book with more content because
hmm
you can have all the pictures, but you also need some text. You need some chapters about what happened
Yeah.
and what paleo art means in the whole context of this event. So, yeah, that is a huge project,
Sure.
and I'm always looking for support.
Yeah. I mean that I don't know any book publishers. I mostly know games publishers, but that is the kind of project that is, I mean, it's obviously not, the newest mystery about a law firm that's gonna sell 1 million copies or whatever and be in airports and stuff like that. But I'm surprised at how many big, chunky books full of illustrations have come out recently in the paleo space. Again, I know this only from reading the blog of Dare Nation,
Mm.
Tetrapod Zoology, but like he's put together, been involved in several, and but there is like exactly the kind. It's a project that is very much like right now. There are projects exactly like that, using art to trace sort of the knowledge through the representations that humans have made of dinosaurs. Like it's a track, it's a like a an analysis of our knowledge of the
Oh, yeah,
event,
absolutely.
and so. Um, That's a great idea for a project. And you've already taken action on it, so I wish you all success there because that
Yeah,
is a
thank
book
you.
that I would enjoy having and looking through. I'm thinking now, like even back when, like I was as a kid and I in my dinosaur books, almost every one ended with some sort of illustration of like all the dinosaurs like and
All
there's
of
this
them, yeah.
every single one has that on the last page. And or well, that's the second to last page. The last page is like the bones in the dirt, like then some guy with a
It's
brush brushing off the thing.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, that's a really neat idea. And so like if so that how can people support you on that? Like
yeah,
if that's a thing you said, if you're looking for support,
yeah,
how can people support that project or any of the other work or follow you? Tell us all the
yeah,
places online to find you.
yeah. So if you want to support this project, you can go to my website. It's bonplanart.com. So that's bonplandrat.com. And there is a whole page about the project, about where I am at this point, and how you can support me, and also how you can reach out to me. And if you follow me on Twitter, that's Bonpland, so Bonpland. That's my tag. And Instagram, it's Bonpland Art again. So follow me there. I post more or less regularly. And yeah, this month I will post even more about Herd and the Kickstarter project.
Well, yeah, well, appreciate that. I was looking through your Instagram earlier today, sort of in prep for the interview, and there was some about a year ago you did a series of pictures where you'd found some old sketches of they look like D&D sort of things, and then you
Oh
redrew
yeah,
them in like, now that I'm a grown up and I'm
yeah.
revisiting this theme. So lots of fun stuff on your Instagram to find, as well as all about the
Yeah, my
book.
Instagram is less paleo artsy and more whatever comes to my mind, and my Twitter/X is more
Hmm.
paleo art focused. Yeah.
And then obviously you have your website as well. Um,
Oh yeah.
awesome. And do you have a Patreon that people have? Can people give you a Ko-fi? Like all these things, you don't do
No,
the
actually, I don't. I should totally get one of those. Yeah.
you can run, well, yeah, I don't know. We someday you may be running your crowdfunding campaign for this cool book. But yeah, hopefully a publisher because like I said, there's got to be a publisher who's looking for their next project, right? And you're just like, I've been working on it for years. So again, if you are a publisher, get in touch with Jan about this project.
Reach
Either
out
one
to
of
me.
his
Yeah.
books, because they both sound pretty cool. Um, all right. Again, I want to thank you for your time tonight, today.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for all the viewers who've watched this. Make sure you tell in the comments what your favorite dinosaur is, and what's your well, and did you have a book? Did you have a book that had one of those, the Allosaurus looks up from the corpse
And
of something and sees the comment?
and how did it end? Yeah. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.
yeah, it was and enjoyable as well, for me at
It
least. I hope
was
hope for you
it
as
was
well.
great.
Um, uh, again, thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure to work with you. Hope the game is doing great. By the time this interview comes out, it'll be live on crowdfunding. You can, if this is somehow the first time you've heard about it, a link to it will be in the video description as well. So go to the crowdfunding as well as visit Jan on the internet. Again, thank you.
Right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.